So we're talking about ADHD self-care tips. With ADHD, as people say, it's a interest-based nervous system, right? We have an interest-based nervous system. And so when we're talking about self-care, a lot of this is going to be in regards to the nervous system, right? And that's when we're looking at self-care, because when we regulate our nervous system, that is when we can perform at the highest level. We can stay regulated. We can push ourselves. We can time block. We can do things that are out of our comfort zone. We can talk to people. We can be more social. We can take care of our space. We can do everything, right? When our nervous system is more regulated. And so you'll see in these tips, a lot of this is going to be about your nervous system. And they're going to support that, even though you may or may not understand the correlation at the time. There are things that are really important with that. So the first thing, why is self-care different a little bit for ADHD? So again, this isn't like a knowledge problem. It's not a discipline problem. That's not what this is. This is an interest-based nervous system. And sometimes our executive function, which is our ability to do the thing, to get the thing done, to organize, to prioritize, to regulate our emotions, with ADHD, it's going to be regulated differently because our dopamine, our serotonin, our neurochemicals are regulated differently. And so things that might work for somebody else might not work for us. So for example, anybody here tried meditation and it's not helpful, or you might feel anxious when you do it? Has anybody done that before? So meditation, right? Has anybody done meditation and it is helpful? I know there's some people on here as well. Yeah. So with meditation, for sometimes our brain, because we work so fast or because we're chronically understimulated, sitting still and witnessing our thoughts, especially if you have intrusive thoughts or rumination, might not actually be helpful for you in that format, right? You might do better with walking meditation. You might do better listening to binaural beats. You might do better uh, like on a treadmill or out in nature or being present with your animals or a loved one, right? So self-care sometimes can look different for us because our brain is differently wired in some ways, and our nervous system, right? So if you've tried meditation and it hasn't been helpful, try different forms, try different types in case that one's not the perfect fit for you. If it is, that's great. For a lot of us, our self-care has to work with ADHD. So the other thing with self-care tips is if it taxes an executive dysfunction, like it's something you don't want to do, right? Or it takes fuel or it takes brain power to do the thing. So then you don't do it and then you beat yourself up. That's not self-care, right? If you shame yourself because you didn't do the thing you were supposed to do for self-care, like that's not self-care. Shame is not self-care, right? It's going to drain your energy and you're going to feel worse. So make sure that your self-care that you choose for ADHD is something that's doable and easy. So an example of that, I have a notebook. Let's see if it's under some of my stuff, but I have a notebook. So every night before bed, I'm going to write 3 things that I learned that day, some gratitude, something I won at. But I'm gonna, and this is something that other people do. I'm gonna do it small, right? I'm gonna do like 2 things that I won at, or 1 thing I'm proud of myself, or 1 thing I'm grateful for. It's something fast that I don't have to sit down and set a timer for 20 minutes, you know? Whereas somebody else, I think we just had a comment that she's able to meditate every morning for 15 minutes, and that's really helpful. And that's great. And that's the thing with ADHD. And just, I think in general, when you're on some of these calls or coaching or productivity, you're going to hear a lot of absolutes or all or nothing, that this works for everybody. And if you don't do it, you're not going to be successful. And you got to be part of the 5 a.m. club or the 6 a.m. club, or you're not going to be successful. And that's not true, especially with the diversity of our brains, right? So 1 thing that works for one person might not work for you. And it doesn't mean shaming yourself. It means find a different way, make it easier, find an accommodation. So before I get into the tips, that's what I want to say is listen to what feels helpful for you. It shouldn't feel like a chore. It should feel rejuvenating. So a couple ADHD self-care mistakes. Tell me if you relate to this. You wait until the burnout occurs instead of getting ahead of it, right? You wait until the burnout occurs. Some all or nothing thinking, I got to do this. If I'm going to work out, I've got to do this crazy workout and I've got to lose 10 pounds in 2 months, or I'm not going to do it at all. I got to go for this extreme thing, or I'm not going to do it, you know, or I have to do it every single day. And if I miss one day, it's done. I fell off. It didn't work, you know. Creating overly complicated routines. So when the dopamine's flowing and we're like, oh, I'm going to do this, and this would be great. We're not always thinking about what's sustainable. And then we have a very rigid routine. And remember, with ADHD, we want structure, but we need freedom within the structure. So in case that day hits where you're really just not feeling it, you want to have the freedom to modify it a little bit so then it feels sustainable. So you actually do it, because if it's not interesting, if it's not producing dopamine, if it's not passionate of ours, if it's not urgent, we may not do it. So what you don't want is self-care that feels like a chore that makes you beat yourself up. That's not what we want, right? So the other self-care mistake is, I've kind of touched on this a little bit, is trying to be neurotypical. So the goal with ADHD and self-care in your brain is not to be more like everyone else or more like a neurotypical person. The goal is to be more like you, to be more regulated, to be more authentic, to create an environment that supports you, to create a routine, sleep schedule, self-care, health, nutrition that supports you, that's sustainable. And then the last mistake that a lot of people make with ADHD self-care is they rely solely on motivation, right? They rely on, like, we can rely on motivation. I got to get pumped up. I got to, why am I not doing this? I got to get motivated, versus making it easy, making it something that's incorporated in part of your routine, body doubling, doing it with somebody else, all those things. So a couple tips. I felt like that was important. And the other thing, self-care is maintenance, not luxury. Self-care is maintenance, not luxury. So it's similar to charging your phone, right? So prevention is easier than recovery. And somebody who's helped a lot, coached a lot of people out of ADHD burnout and autistic burnout, it is so much easier to catch yourself before you pass the threshold than to pull that back, right? So if you do little stuff and you catch yourself when you're starting to kind of get a little bit burned out, and you catch it and you reverse it, or you take a day off, or you ease up a little bit, you can stop it. But once it passes this threshold, sometimes people just get in kind of like a burnout that's really hard to pull back. So you can still totally come back from that. Trust me. It's just the harder you push and the farther you get past that line, sometimes a little bit longer to get you back, or the more extreme rest you're going to need to take. So we're looking for sustainability beats intensity, and small habits create large outcomes. So remember that it doesn't need to be some crazy thing. So the first one that I want to talk about, which is probably not going to be on your normal list, is unmasking. Unmasking. So if you've been on these calls, type in the chat, what does unmasking mean to you? What does unmasking mean to you? And when I say unmasking, if you haven't heard that term, if you haven't been on these calls, which is totally fine, you can hop into any of it you want. But unmasking is when, again, we stop trying to play neurotypical, we stop overcompensating, and we really just unmask and like relax and be ourselves. If we talk a little bit faster, we let ourselves talk faster. If we have if we're a little bit messy, we allow ourselves to be a little bit messy sometimes. It's giving ourselves grace. So what does unmasking mean to you? Masking is when a person with ADHD acts in a socially acceptable way, right? To fit in and to get along with those around us. And it can be camouflaging some of our traits. So controlling your impulses, rehearsing responses before you do something, copying the behavior of the people around you, maybe not speaking up, not trusting what you think is right, or being more quiet because you don't want to take up space. And so unmasking can be this huge relief, and it is, and we need avenues to unmask. And so if you have to mask a lot at work or at home, what I would say, have certain times or days or areas where you unmask. And an example of this, if you're able to, is if you have like a more hyperactive type like I have, there are sometimes when I can tell I've been masking, and I will, and other clients do this as well, you take half a day, and wherever the brain goes, you let it go. Right. So think of like self-control or discipline as this muscle. And sometimes we need to give it a break, and we need to let it rest. And so I might get in my truck and I want to go work out, and then I want to go to the mall and walk around, and then I want to go in nature. Right. And it might not make sense, but it's like my brain just needs to run and to not be held back on impulses. No, I'm not going to do stuff that's not good for me. I'm going to be within reason, but I'm going to say, hey, if you want to go here, go here. And I might even have a budget, $50, whatever I run into, and I want to spend $50, I can do that, but I said it ahead of time. So just giving yourself time to unmask. It could be making sure that you spend time with friends who are also neurodivergent, that you don't have to mask, that you can say you're your humor or your jokes, or you can talk really fast, or you can jump around from topic to topic and not have to apologize because they're right there with you, right? So having neurodivergent friends can be really, really helpful. There's value in neurotypical friends too. I have both, but having an arena of other people who have an interest-based nervous system where you don't have to slow your pace down and you can go, go, go is going to be really healthy, really, really healthy for you. So unmasking is a big thing. The other thing, and these are, you can Google ADHD self-care tips and we'll have some of the normal ones in here, but I wanted to give you some things that may not be in your, Google list, because I think they're really important. So number one is unmasking. Number two is allowing yourself to stim, allowing yourself to stim without judgment. So again, remember when I talked about with ADHD, this is we have an interest-based nervous system. So stimming, and you probably stim and you don't even know it. So stimming is actually self-soothing and it's regulating for our nervous system. So it can help regulate under stimulation. It can calm your anxiety. It might give you an outlet for energy. It might relieve your boredom. It can help you focus. And there's different types of stimming. So sight, so visual stims. I actually should have brought some of this out here, but visual stim, like if you've ever seen, actually, let me show you this. Here's a visual stim. This is something that you can look at, right? That's stimulating, and there's actually sand in here, and it turns, and the sand is different masses and weights, so they never mix together. It's kind of going a little slow because it's cold down here. But a visual sim, if you can look up close, right, you can kind of watch some of the glitter, things like that, and it's really stimulating for our brain. Because remember, with ADHD, for a lot of us, our brains are understimulated, and so by stimming, whether that's clicking a pen or tapping your foot, even verbal stims. So you might, if you hum or repeat words outside or in your head, that can be a stim. If you bite your cheek, if you, this could be a tactile stim. If you play with your hair, that could be a touch. Auditory, you might listen to the same song over and over and over again. Anybody have that? Where there's a song and you just play it over and over again? That's stimming. That's stimming. If you rock back and forth, if you smell essential oils, if you have a weighted blanket, or you like soda water, right? Bubbles, fizzy water, that can be a stim as well. So it's all things that give you extra sensory input. So we can be very sensory seeking. So if we are masking our traits, right, and we are not letting ourselves stim, our brain can be chronically overstimulated and it's having a lot of trouble regulating, and that's where we get burnout really quick. So that's why those are my top two on the list, and the other ones are absolutely important. I'm not saying the other ones aren't as important, but those are two things that a lot of people don't talk about that I really want to say first, is having a space to unmask and allowing yourself to stim. Is going to be really important. And yes, there are people who have autism who stim. You might see like the rocking back and forth or the hand flapping. There can be a lot of stims with that. And there's a lot of overlap with ADHD traits. They're two different things, but there can be an overlap. So there's sometimes shame around stimming. I think for a lot of people, or they feel like, why am I restless? Why am I shaking my leg? Why can't I sit still? I'm an adult. What's wrong with me? And it's so important to understand that your brain is trying to help you when you stim. Your brain is trying to help you. It's trying to regulate. Stimming, like if I'm talking to you and you're playing with a fidget toy or you're fidgeting, what that tells me is you want to pay attention to me. And so your brain's finding something to fidget with to stimulate it because this is important to you. It's important to you. So again, stimming is really good. If you do that kind of stuff, embrace it. And that's a really healthy thing, because I'll say here, there's also thoughts can be stims. And this is my last thing on stimming, because a lot of people don't talk about it as much as I think we could, is if you don't allow yourself to stim and you're masking all the time, what your brain is going to do, it's going to stim for you. And happy thoughts are not very compelling. Happy thoughts don't always create dopamine, right? But negative thoughts do. So if you're not unmasking and you're not uh, stimming and you're not allowing that, you could likely have more negative thoughts. And a lot of people don't make that correlation, because when I have a thought like, oh my gosh, I'm never gonna I missed that listing and I got rejected, or this company's never going to take off, or I'm just not cut out for this. I'm going to get rejected. The body sends endorphins and says cortisol, right? And then that in turn, there's a big correlation between endorphins, cortisol, and dopamine. So then it gives you dopamine. So now your brain's like, oh, okay, we're stimming. We've got dopamine now. Like negative thoughts give you dopamine. It doesn't feel great. So we can actually get addicted to negative thoughts. And that's why, again, allowing yourself to stim and getting, and number three is movement. Because if you don't allow yourself to do that, your brain is saying, we're so understimulated, we're bored, we're not doing well. We are not doing well. We got to create some stimulation. So my number three tip is movement. And I say movement because when I say exercise, I think that has a certain connotation. I've been a personal trainer before, and I worked in mental health, and I actually did personal training at inpatient residential facilities with extreme mental health cases, and then I worked residential as well. So movement is really big, and I say movement because it doesn't need to be exercise where you go to the gym. Like you could, and it's almost stimming, right? Like you could get on the floor and stretch. You could go for a walk. You could pick up stuff in the yard. You could do sit-ups or push-ups. You could dance, put on some music. You could play a Dance Revolution, or just dance on a video game and get movement in. So that movement is really, really important for our brains. And I think there's like I don't know, exercise can be, I don't know. Sometimes that whole thing can be a little toxic, depending on what that means to you. But I've worked with a lot of people with body stuff and things like that, and it's exercise, and you got to do this. So get movement where it's not a punishment. This is like a really wonderful, joyous thing to give your body, is to get the blood flowing, to get moving, to get in your body and out of your head, and that's going to really help the brain with your regulate your neurochemicals. When we get movement, and it actually helps engage the frontal lobe, and it can regulate better. So regulating emotions is really helpful. Number four is to create. So self-care, create an expression is so important. Studies show that we rank really high on creativity. And the interesting thing is they've correlated that when you have higher creativity, a lot of times there's higher impulse control. Higher impulse control is correlated with higher creativity. And with ADHD, studies show we have like, or no, I'm sorry, weaker impulse control, right? So if your impulse control is weak, you're likely very creative, and maybe that's not painting, maybe that's in your thoughts or your humor or your writing or your marketing ideas, or the way you decorate or the way you take pictures. That doesn't necessarily mean you can draw, realistic face. You're very likely creative. Maybe you have random thoughts. So weaker impulse control is tied to creativity, and creating is so healthy for our nervous system. It's so good for us. And it doesn't need to be perfect, right? Nobody else needs to see it. You don't have to be able to create something to sell it. Like that's not what we're doing here. And a lot of times hobbies, as adults, it's like, oh, are they monetized? Sometimes no. Like create for yourself, make it silly, get some crayons, color in a coloring book. It's really, really soothing, and it's a good way. You can meditate in color. You really can, and it's a way to engage our brain, to stimulate us, and to be really soothing, right? So creating can be listening to music. It could be playing music. That could be, you could build something. You could cook something. I was just making some recipe up before this call for lunch, to kind of create. You could even play a video game sometimes. I mean, those can be creative too. There's all kinds of Minecraft, whatever game, do a puzzle, create something on Canva. But creating is really, really good for our nervous system, really good for our brains. So the next one is for self-care is making time for special interests and hobbies and learning. So we are very curious people. Neurodivergent people are known for being curious. That's why we have so many inventors who are neurodivergent, right? So making time to learn, to do hobbies for your special interests, that is going to fuel you. I'm wondering, special interests, and what I mean by that could be all kinds of things. But I'm curious what your special interests are. What makes you happy? What's fun? What are your hobbies? When we think about that, when you think about that, doesn't that give you energy? You think about your hobbies, you think about your special interests. So for neurotypical people, hobbies are fun. For neurodivergent people, for a lot of us, they have a whole other level for us. Sometimes they give us life, right? Sometimes they give us life. So embracing our special interests, making time for our special interests and our hobbies is what's going to fill you back up, because we are living in a world that's made for neurotypical people, right? Because the ADHD is 3 to 8% of the population, 3 to 8% of the population, right? So our world is built for neurotypical people, and that's not really anybody's fault. Of course, you're going to build the world for the majority. So understand, though, that the world is not necessarily built for your nervous system. Doesn't mean you can't thrive. You totally can. You can totally adapt and actually do really, really well and thrive over a lot of people that don't have ADHD when you're doing certain things, because we have almost a brain of extremes, right? We have really cool gifts, and then there are things that can be difficult. So when you are allowing yourself to give yourself self-care and taking care of yourself and getting accommodations in for the stuff that feels difficult, or leveraging certain things, now you have a brain of extremes, right? And you have these gifts that other people have trouble competing with, and you go out in the world and you have that, right? When you're really intuitive, you have a lot of empathy, you have pattern recognition, you can take risks, you're very creative, you can very authentic, you can make friends easily, you can connect with people, you pick up on certain things. So that's why this is so helpful. It's not that you're gonna, if you are struggling, you're not gonna struggle forever. I mean, that's not how it works. We get stuff in place for the things that feel hard, identify what feels hardest first, and tackle that one at a time. What's the thing that feels most impairing? What accommodations can you put in place? Can you remove it? Can you do something different? Can you leverage it out? Can you do a modified version, right? And you just go one by one until you really clean up things that are difficult. And now you're just standing in these gifts. And it's pretty amazing. I've seen that happen as an ADHD coach a lot, right? So yeah, make time for your special interests and your hobbies. The other thing for self-care is, and we talked a little bit about accommodations in place, is boundaries. And especially, do we have any people pleasers like me on here? I mean, recovering people pleaser, I'm working on it. Yeah, I know we have some, right? So boundaries are really, really important. And when you have deeper levels of empathy, and I'm not saying neurotypical people don't have empathy, there's just a bigger correlation and higher statistics of empathy with neurodivergent people. When you have empathy like that and you're intuitive, and you might have some of the people pleasing can come from being reprimanded a lot in our life, or having to mask, or feeling like we're falling short. We can kind of go to the extreme and people please. So boundaries are going to be really, really big. And a lot of times we can self abandon. We feel guilty when we rest. If you have executive function troubles like getting motivated, procrastination, those kinds of things, when you actually get time to rest, it's like, okay, what am I supposed to be doing? It's not like, oh, I have time to rest, I can rest. It's like, what did I forget? Right? Oh, I actually have time to rest. Well, I need to catch up on this thing I'm behind on. So protecting your rest time is going to be really important as well. Saying no with coaching clients. Like sometimes for the week, we had a goal of saying no a certain amount of times. Like that was the one thing for the week, was saying no 10 times. And so instead of it being this anxiety producing thing, it was like, hey, I said no to this. Okay, great. 9 left, 8 left. So practicing saying no and seeing like, oh, I don't get abandoned. I don't lose business. I actually feel healthier and happier. That's really important. So we want to protect time for us, and not fall into that people pleaser trap. Because remember, when you say yes to one thing, you're saying no to something else. So when you say yes to that thing you don't really want to do, or that's not for you, or that's not helpful, or it doesn't build your business, or it doesn't help somebody, what are you saying no to? Because you're going to be saying no to something else, right? And then community. So community is the next thing on the list. Self-care, having community, leaning on these communities. If you want, you can go to ADHDagents.com. And if you'd like community, we have a great mastermind group. We have guest speakers. We share in there. We have a whole referral map with referrals going back and forth. And there's a 7-day trial that's only $97 a month. I'm keeping it low, so it's accessible. And so you can jump in there and you can have community there. We have our free Facebook groups. You can do that, or you can find people in your city, in your community. But having community is going to be really important for you, because if you've had a heavy day of masking and you feel rejected, or you feel like you've had to hide who you are, stepping into a space of people that all get you is priceless. And like, you need that. Wherever you get that, go get that. If you don't have that, put that top of your list. You need somewhere that embraces you, that understands your brain, that appreciates you, where you're not trying to hide that and hold that back. And then lastly on the list is designing your business around your brain. So this is kind of self-care. I mean, we're talking about environment. And again, yes, we want you to sleep, we want you to eat well, nutrition, but that's the stuff that you can Google. And I wanted to give you something a little bit different. But designing your business around your brain, right? And especially if this is the first time you've been on this call, what I want you to hear is that a lot of the advice out there is for the majority, right? It's not for a neurodivergent interest-based nervous system. It's for a neurotypical person that can do consistency the same time every day, the same way, right? And they want to be told a little bit more of what to do. Not always, but that's kind of a theme, because I used to coach people who weren't ADHD as well, entrepreneurs and realtors. So remember that for them, that same thing every day, same time every day, the same way is helpful. But again, we have an interest-based nervous system. So if we're trying to run a play where our brain can fluctuate more, and you might have a ton of dopamine where you can go all day and do something in one day that would take somebody else 2 weeks, do it. Don't force yourself in these little time blocks to do 15 minutes at a time. If your brain's saying, hey, I want to fly, let me go. I want to work on this project all day and shut the world off and get this done. Let your brain do that. And you might do well with lead gen all in one day. Maybe instead of every day at the same time, you do it all on Monday, and that's your lead gen day. And the next day is your paperwork day. And the next, and then maybe that gets stale and you switch it up. And that's okay. Because remember, when things stop getting new, they stop producing dopamine. So it doesn't mean beat yourself over the head with a stick. It means, hey, how do I make this new again? So I'm naturally creating dopamine to make this easy, right? So when there's a lot of resistance on something, we want to figure out a way to remove the resistance and still achieve the goal. So if that's a different approach, who cares? The objective is what matters, not how you get there. So designing your business around your brain is going to be really, really important, right? That's really important. So I just want to reiterate that. Design your business around your brain, and just like, your brain is so cool. So again, get community, unmask, let yourself stim, have good boundaries, take care of yourself, make time for your special interests and your hobbies and your learning, make sure to create, and embrace who you are instead of masking or thinking something's wrong with you. Because the way that you talk about yourself and the way you treat yourself is the way that other people are going to perceive that. So if you're small and you're apologetic, they're going to see you as small and like you're maybe doing something wrong. Whereas if you're confident and kind and calm, then you're actually going to give people permission to do the same thing for themselves, and to advocate and to stim and to unmask. So that is the call today. If you like more, again, ADHDagents.com. If you want to join, we have a group that meets every Thursday. It's a private mastermind, and we have an app at a referral fee. So check that out. And if you're interested in coaching, in ADHD coaching, send me a message on Facebook or email or wherever. So thank you for joining. That is ADHD self-care tips. Appreciate y'all being here, and we'll see you next Tuesday. So take care of yourselves and have a wonderful day.